Muted.
Tim, it's 9 o'clock whenever you're ready to start. Tim, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Armando. Thank you. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you to all for joining our webinar this morning. I'm Tim Worley. I'm Executive Director of the California-Nevada section of AWWA, and my role today is just to be the moderator for this morning's webinar. I want to, again, thank you for joining us. We have an interesting topic this morning. We are starting a number of webinars this year, but this is still fairly new to us. So if we have any technical difficulties along the way, please send us a note on the dashboard there, and we'll make sure to work it out. Anyway, this morning's webinar will go for 2 hours. We have this scheduled from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock this morning. We do have 3 presenters to talk on our topic today. Those will be introduced as we come to them, but we'll hear from Adam Carpenter with the American Water Works Association, Jonathan Gledhill with the Policy Navigation Group, and Bernard Adebayo-Ije from Southern California Edison. So we do have those presenters, but we also want to hear from you. We really want to get some feedback. That is one of the main purposes for this morning's webinar. We want to provide some information to you, but also hear how we can make this whole area work for you and meet your needs. So at the end, please save your questions or you can write them into the question pane on the side of your screen and we'll get to those at the appropriate time. So with that, I'm going to just introduce our first speaker. Adam Carpenter works for AWWA, as I mentioned. He's in the Government Affairs Office in Washington, D.C. He serves there as an expert and advocate on a diverse set of drinking water issues, including climate change, hydraulic fracturing, the energy-water nexus, carbon capture and storage, consumer confidence reports, and other environmental policy issues. Along with his colleagues there in D.C. office, he works to further AWWA's mission of supporting clean, affordable drinking water through sound application of science into policy, sensible regulation, public awareness, and building stakeholder consensus. Adam has a bachelor's degree from George Washington University, a master's degree from Johns Hopkins, and is pursuing a PhD in environmental policy from George Mason University. So without further ado, let's turn it over to Adam. And Adam, you're on.
All right, thank you, Tim. Can everybody hear me, and is my slide screen showing correctly? Okay, can everybody hear me now?
Yes, Adam.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. All right, thank you guys. Thank you everybody for joining today's webinar. I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you in advance, and I'm hoping this is going to be a real opportunity for everybody here and for others in the water sector, not only in California but across the country as we move into the future. So I'm going to talk about I'm going to do a little bit on EPA's Clean Power Plan rule, although I probably should have reworded the introductory slide here and focus much more on AWWA's energy initiative, and then how that is going to relate to what we're going to be talking about for the rest of today, which is specific to Southern California. And Tim, thank you for that introduction. As Tim mentioned, I work in AWWA's Government Affairs Office in Washington, D.C., one of the regulatory staff working to serve the water sector on a number of different regulatory and federal policy issues. I'm going to talk a little bit about our energy efficiency initiative, what we've been doing out of this office to try to help position the water sector to participate in energy efficiency programs, and also to the extent that the EPA's Clean Power Plan, provided it does continue to move forward, how that will likely change the landscape moving forward and provide both challenge and opportunity to the water sector. So I'm going to be talking about that. I'm going to be talking about specific challenges and specific opportunities to the water sector, and then finally talk a little bit about this precedent-making opportunity that the other speakers are going to be talking in much more detail about after me. So AWWA has been working for a little bit over a year now, probably about 15 or 16 months, on what we are calling the AWWA Energy Efficiency Initiative, which is a combination of an education campaign, working with state officials, with our sections, directly with members, and with individuals in the energy sector to learn more about energy efficiency at water utilities and the potential opportunities for those sectors working together towards energy efficiency goals. And then also an advocate, being an advocate to EPA, to the other federal agencies and to states to try to find ways to add energy efficiency as a voluntary option to both any implementation of EPA's Clean Power Plan if it does move forward, and then to existing programs that exist in many states like they do in California, which is why I have highlighted this one red. This is what we're going to be spending most of today's time talking about, is the potential opportunities in California. All of this work, at least on the national level, is funded through the Water Industry Technical Action Fund, which is also known as WITAF. which is paid through AWWA's organizational member dues. So I wanted to thank everybody for your continued membership and your support of this project. So first key takeaway. Key takeaway number one is that energy efficiency funding is available right now. There are likely going to be some significant changes in the future, more along the lines of increased funding and increased opportunity if EPA's Clean Power Plan does move forward. But that is no reason to not look into and take advantage of the opportunities that are available today. In just one major stream of funding, which is known as ratepayer funding, where electric utilities or the state collects money to pay for energy efficiency programs and uses that to collects money through users' bills and then distributes that to help improve efficiency. There's about $7 billion a year in funding available right now. That is several times the size of the annual appropriations to the state revolving loan funds, just as a basis for comparison. Of course, most of that funding will not go to the water sector, but regardless, there's a very large pie, and it only seems appropriate that the water sector should be able to take advantage of their slice, of what should be their slice of the pie. There are also other sources of energy efficiency funding. There's a handful of state programs that fund items directly, a handful of Department of Energy grants, things like that. And then, of course, there's a number of other types of public and private financing loans and other sources as well. Many of the lessons learned working through the ratepayer funding methodology could also be applied to these other opportunities as well. So we're using, through our energy efficiency initiative, we're using EPA's rulemaking as a catalyst to go back and look at the various different state programs and help connect our members and our sections to the opportunities that are available or could become available in those areas. That will help better position the sector not only for funds that are available today, but for funds that may become available in the future, whether because of the Clean Power Plan or for some other reason. Here's just a graph of the past several years, with 2013 being the most recent data that we had immediately available of ratepayer-funded energy efficiency. As you can see, it has definitely been increasing significantly over the past decade to the tune of a little bit over $7 billion available today. Now, what are the challenges? Well, this is under the presumption that the EPA's Clean Power Plan does move forward, which is not a sure thing, given the Supreme Court's recent stay to review the rule. However, going on EPA's own analysis, there's expected to be about a 3% increase on average nationwide over the next couple of years, increase in the cost of electricity just because of this one rule alone. There are, of course, other rules out there, both regulatory and economic items that affect the cost of electricity, just like how we have a big series of infrastructure concerns in the water sector. The electricity sector has the same sorts of concerns as well. And we expect that there are other reasons why electricity prices will go up as well. There's basically a very limited window of opportunity to find and set up the sector, find opportunities and set up the sector to participate in this. These opportunities, largely because as the states begin to roll out their implementation plans for the Clean Power Plan, again, provided it moves forward, something I've had to say quite often since the Supreme Court ruling came down the other week, there will be a relatively small window to get into these state plans and to get in on board before they really start pushing for results immediately, so that we can have examples, we can have case studies, we can have precedent to draw upon in order to greatly expand it, both through California and across the country. The Clean Power Plan, just as an estimate, and this could be used for any other item that increases the cost of power as well, but using EPA's own estimates of 3% by 2020, that translates to about $115 million a year nationally in increased cost of power just for drinking water. You add in wastewater, and you're talking over $200 million a year. And there are many other estimates that are higher cost than EPA's official projections, both for how much energy the water sector uses and also the increased cost of power. So these are what I would consider to be kind of a guess best floor estimate of how much it's going to cost the sector. However, that doesn't mean with new costs and challenges, that doesn't mean there aren't opportunities as well. So one of the key items here to be thinking about is that there's some opportunity to gain back some of the cost and mitigate future increases in price based upon ratepayer funding or any other energy efficiency opportunities that may move forward. EPA did not have an exact equivalent analysis in its final rule, but in the EPA proposal, there was a $10 billion annual increase in spending on energy efficiency by 2020 for the purposes of compliance. So, taking $7 billion and potentially adding $10 billion more to the pie makes it a very, very, very large pie, and therefore, hopefully, many opportunities for the water sector if we position ourselves to take advantage of them. Now, why the water sector? Well, other than the fact we're AWWA and we're looking to find opportunities in the water sector, there really are many objective, completely objective reasons why the water sector would be a great target for energy efficiency projects. In addition to using lots of electricity, there are many types of activities at water utilities that could better account for the energy they're already saving, and then also be modified slightly to save even more energy. Right now, the water sector rarely gets any credit for the improvements that actually do save quite a bit as infrastructure is upgraded and modifications are made to procedures and things of that nature. On the other side of the coin, looking at it from the electric provider's point of view of administering an efficiency program, we really are what I would kind of call a gold standard. We have professional trained staff. There are large capital projects that are expected to be very long-lived. You know that once something has gone in the ground, it's going to be there for years to decades to come, saving energy year after year after year. They're in use most of the time, 24/7 for the enterprise, and for much infrastructure, it's in use for very large portions of the days. And unlike many other types of projects, water utilities are very easily verifiable. You could go and look at a water utility and see the practices and see the infrastructure in most cases underway for purposes of verification. As we've gone around the country, talking to a number of different sections, state offices, many members directly, probably several hundred meetings at this point, we found that really most of the stakeholders we've talked to are really receptive on a conceptual level, really kind of understanding the connection, the energy-water nexus connection, and why it would be so important for water utilities to participate in these programs. It's an opportunity to add additional funding to the sector. It's also an opportunity for the electric sector to meet their goals for energy efficiency, and certainly has side benefits of resilience and many other infrastructure-related side co-benefits as well. Of course, when you get down to the details, it gets much more complicated, but those details are all things that can be worked out. So we're going to be spending a lot of today talking about some of the details in Southern California to try to identify how, what are the potential challenges right now and how can those challenges be overcome. And as we transition to the next speaker, I just wanted to make it clear that Policy Navigation Group is working for AWWA, helping us identify states where there are active sections, active opportunities, active ability to pursue potential precedent-setting opportunities where we could see some early investment in the water sector for energy efficiency and use those to catalyze action elsewhere in the country. So they're really deeply involved in the details and helping us figure out exactly where we can go and how to get through that particular area's process to prove really that all of the things that I've just said before about verifiable and big opportunities and all those sorts of things really are true and exist, and actually document some results. And with that, I'm guessing we're probably going to hold questions to the end, but for anybody who would like to talk with me in more detail at some later point, please feel free to take a note of my email and phone number, and I would be happy to assist you. And with that, I will turn it back to Tim.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Adam, for that nice introduction to what we're here to talk about. And I'm glad to transition to the next presenter. As Adam mentioned, we will open the phone lines for questions at the end. Right now we have everyone in mute mode, but we will unmute your lines at the end to have some oral interplay play between the attendees and all of the presenters. And you can also enter your questions on the screen, the little panel on your computer monitor as well. So our next presenter, as Armando switches slides, we will go to Jonathan Gledhill. Jonathan Gledhill is the president of the Policy Navigation Group. He has advised trade associations and Fortune 100 clients on regulatory policy issues for over 10 years there. Previously, Mr. Gledhill worked at the EOP Group in Washington, D.C., and also at in the Natural Resources branch of the White House Office of Management and Budget for over 4 years, where he reviewed regulatory, policy, and economic issues. Mr. Gledhill was the primary analyst at OMB for all hazardous and solid waste regulations and policies, and he also worked on other issue areas, including Superfund, the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act, housing standards, and other issues. Mr. Gledhill received a master's in public policy from the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard, and he also has a Bachelor of Science in Engineering degree from Princeton. So I think for all of us, it's also important to note that he, early in his career, he also worked as an environmental engineer designing and operating drinking water and wastewater treatment facilities. So he's one of us. So with that, I'm glad to turn the speaker over to Jonathan. Jonathan, take it away.
Thank you, Tim. It's always good to be known to be one of you, so it's appreciate the introduction. Adam covered a lot of the things I wanted to cover, so what I'm going to try to do is put him in the context of California, and particularly Southern California. What I want to try to do is, again, talk about how the national initiative that we have the honor of working with AWWA on really can apply here in this time and this place, i.e. this year in California, and particularly Southern California and Southern California Edison's territory, because we have an exciting opportunity to understand that opportunity, to understand why it's important and why this time and this place is important. I just want to spend a little time talking about California's past, policy on energy efficiency in the water sector, and the near-term future, which means what we need to do now in this year, and why we're, of course, then asking for your help and your assistance to make it a success, not only for you as individual water utilities, but for the sector and for the section. So this is a time where some activity can really yield some benefits, not only for you, but for public policy in California and as well as the nation. As Adam mentioned, this is part of a national effort. A lot of the appropriate caveats that Adam gave about the Clean Power Plan rule and spending levels don't really apply to California because California, of course, has its own public policy on climate change, including taxation, other incentives, and commitments on energy efficiency. So out of that $7 billion that Adam mentioned, over $1 billion of that is being spent in California. That's our money in the sense of we're paying for it on our electric bills, and it goes into a pool that IOUs like Southern California Edison hold and then distribute based on qualified programs. The other key challenge of the national effort is that we don't have any specific energy efficiency measures designed for the water utilities, not in California, not anywhere in the United States. And as Adam said, our effort is to try to develop those in individual locations where the opportunity is, and then try to bring them and spread them across the nation. And that's another reason why California and Southern California is so important right now, because we can do that. As we mentioned, Adam mentioned, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to use federal awareness to build interest at the state level, to open up this opportunity of funding, to fund the common and routine things we do every single year that save energy, although we think of them as more as water conservation or operations or keeping our system improved. They also save energy. We just don't normally think of it as saving energy. And we want to do it in a way that's cost effective. We don't want to have to fill out a lot of forms. We don't want to have to do a lot of translation from our world to the energy world. We want to see what we can do with the existing project documentation we do as public utilities and as responsible organizations. We want to see how we can use that information to qualify so that the other side of the equation, the energy efficiency side, who are also holding ratepayer money and also have a fiduciary duty, they can meet their requirements with that information. So we want to bridge the two, and that's a lot of the practical, detailed work that Adam was mentioning. So I do want to point out that a lot of the routine things we do day in, day out, year in, year out, save energy. You know, many of you are familiar, we replace equipment with more energy efficient things. We replace our motors and drives. We have HVAC equipment. If we're on the wastewater side, we do a lot on aeration equipment to either use more energy efficient technologies or upgrade the blowers and mixers and things that consume a lot of energy on the wastewater side. Those are discrete equipment that we can point to, and those are discrete purchases. We also do things that improve our energy efficiency by improving our process, because our process is delivering clean, safe, affordable drinking water at the right pressure at the right time everywhere in our system. And so we have challenges to that process efficiency. We have leaky pipes. We have, on the wastewater side, we have I&I problems. We can make our pipes, our process be more efficient by increasing the diameter and the effective diameter of our pipes. So things we can do to make our process of delivering our product more efficient. And that water efficiency is also energy efficiency, because our energy use is the pressure we need and we deliver to our customers so that they get the safety, in case of fire safety, in case of enjoyment, in terms of that shower pressure, and volume that they need to live their lives. And so that how we optimize pressure is another thing we can do to save energy. We can expand storage locations, use potential energy. We can manage our pumping to deliver pressure with the least amount of energy. And then finally, because we use electricity in real time, we can integrate with energy markets. Many of you probably pump at night when the electricity rates are cheaper, and there are more things we can do to be integrated further with energy markets. So these are the kind of things we do, either discreetly or routinely, that we do to make our system well, but they also save energy. We just have not, historically as an industry, talked about the energy savings that comes when we do these things. And that's what we need to change in order to qualify for the money that's available. So why is this a golden opportunity in California? Well, to understand that, let me give you an overview of where energy efficiency policy has been for the water sector in the recent past, what it will look like in the future for us. And so to get from the past to the future, we have to go through today. And this is the opportunity that we want to spend most of the time talking about today. Well, in the past, frankly, there's been skepticism. The California Public Utility Commission staff have always been somewhat skeptical that the water industry and water utilities offer an opportunity for cost-effective energy savings. Historically, Southern California Edison, for example, has been a leader and had pilot programs to reach out to us, and the staff had proposed to eliminate those because they didn't think they were cost-effective, or there was not much uptake or use of those programs by the water utilities. In addition, there's been a lot of concern, technical concern at the energy efficiency level about double counting and what really is the energy savings when you do improvements and stop water loss. And there have been a lot of modeling efforts that the commission had gone through in order to try to account for these things. And what they did was, in recent years, they had said, well, we're not going to have any energy efficiency outreach directly to water utilities until we can figure out these technical issues, and we'll go off on a multi-year effort to try to figure those out. Well, something changed. You know better than me that the drought really focused people's minds on energy use and water use in California. And so last year in September, the commission swept away the worries about these technical issues and authorized IOUs like Southern California Edison to pay for energy efficiency savings incurred in water conservation projects. And since we do a lot of those water conservation projects, we have the potential to be the biggest beneficiary of this change in commission policy. The good news is they gave IOUs a tool that says use this to calculate the energy savings and to calculate potential incentive levels. And some of the policy issues that they were worried about, they said, well, let's move. The drought is an emergency. Let's resolve those in favor of basically the water industry and move forward. So that's led us to today. Now, looking to the forward, this was always meant to be this order that happened last in September and this process was always meant to be sort of a separate response to the drought, and that eventually anything that would save water and energy together would be folded into the existing energy efficiency programs and big program that the CPUC administers. So this moment we have is temporary, and they need to roll these programs into the overall energy efficiency program, which means that we still need to show to the Commission that our projects are cost effective, that we can verify them, and that we can really show the energy savings and water savings from these projects. And at that point, we're going to have to compete with all the other sectors that want some of that $1 billion. Churches, schools, gas stations, supermarkets, everybody would love to get some money to help them improve their equipment. And we're one of those groups. So the clock is ticking, frankly, for us to be able to make that demonstration so that in the future, it's not just this year's money, but we have a not guaranteed, but we have a stream of funds we're eligible for, incentives, that we can qualify year in, year out, that can help us defray our long-term operations. So things I want to emphasize, because I often get this question, we're not talking about a one-time grant, we're not talking about a loan, we're talking about incentive payments for individual projects that if we can get them approved by the CPUC as an efficient measure, anytime you do this, you can apply for the money. And hopefully this would continue for years because clearly California's commitment to energy efficiency and spending isn't going away anytime soon. So we have this opportunity right now to get ourselves qualified, and if we do so, we have the opportunity to have this incentive stream for a long time in the future. So that's where we are today. IOUs like Southern California can start paying right now this year. And fortunately, Southern California Edison has been the IOU in California most interested in our sector, and we thank them for their commitment and interest in us. And they are willing to offer these incentives if they can convince the staff, both in their company as well as the Commission, that they're spending ratepayer monies in a responsible, effective way. So the skepticism that we have to overcome comes from the history, as I mentioned. Will water systems actually participate if incentives are offered? Can we measure the water savings when we do these projects and the energy efficiency according to them? And can we verify that, can we do the evaluation, monitoring, and verification, the EM&V? Can we as the water sector show that we know how to estimate water loss, we know when a project is done, and we can verify that it was done correctly after it was done? So our challenge here and now is to show that we are interested, to show that we can verify our projects, to show that we have a backlog of infrastructure projects in our region that could take a lot of incentives. There are projects we have put off for the future that we could do today if someone gave us an incentive to do them early. Our challenge also is, we're not in the energy business, so we need to streamline the application process with the CPUC and the IOUs so that we can qualify with using as much of the existing data we gather already. We also have to recognize that they have a fiduciary duty to spend the money responsibly. So we just need to build a bridge to figure out how can we show the information we collect can meet their requirements. And as Adam said, we want to develop approaches that can not only be good this year and not only be good in California for a long time, but that can be convincing to other policy officials in other states. Well, to do that, of course, we need your help. And so we need to do some specific things that I'm going to talk about, and in order to help you. And we need to do this in their language, and we need projects in their territory. And the great news is that we, with Tim's leadership, we have worked with Southern California Edison to create an opportunity to overcome these challenges. And that's the excitement and why we're coming to you today. Many of you probably have projects that you think could qualify and would be eligible for incentives. What we'd like to do is work with you to put those projects that you have into 3 bins. And I'll explain why we developed these bins. The first one, and the one I'm going to spend the most time talking about, is we are really interested in your recently completed projects that stop water loss, I should say. Second bin is you have opportunities of other projects that you aren't going to fund this year, but you've identified in your 5-year plan or your investigations that you have future projects that would prevent water loss. And then finally, you have other projects, some of the ones from the list I mentioned, equipment upgrades, motor upgrades, variable frequency drive, things you could do, other metering things you're working at the consumer level, that all probably save energy. And that we want to talk about how do we get the connection between those projects and possible incentives. So let me go through the 3 bins and why we have those 3 bins in a little more detail. Well, recent water loss projects. Well, let me start, I guess, with why do we need them. As I mentioned with the California Public Commission order, they have the most interest because of the drought in encouraging these projects. And so if you're the CPUC and Southern California Edison, the best way you can show being responsive to that is to look at projects that save water and save energy. And the skepticism that we need to overcome is be able to explain to those regulators that we know we can estimate water loss. Before a project happens, we can show that the project happened and that the water loss was avoided. And from that calculation, the tools the California Public Utility Commission gave the SEC allows them to calculate the energy savings with that water loss prevention and therefore an incentive payment. So what we need to do is walk our energy efficiency colleagues through how we do one of those projects from the beginning to the end. How do we evaluate and know we have a water loss opportunity? How do we procure it? How do we, even if it's, we use our own staff, we run out there and do it, and then how do we verify that we've done it? And what's the cost and duration of those types of projects? So what we are very interested in doing is using examples, is some recent projects where you have gone through that process. Big, small, it doesn't matter necessarily, just that we have these 3 components, I think, make it better as examples, that they involve distinct equipment, that they have some evaluation pre and post of the water loss and the effectiveness of the replacement, and that we have some cost and project duration information so we can show how much this is. And ideally, to not only benefit you individually as a water utility, but to benefit your colleagues and to benefit the sector, what we'd like to put forward as examples are those projects that we do day in, day out, year in, year out, to show the great potential we have to accelerate these and do more of them if incentive funds were available. And, of course, we have an immediate need for this information. Southern California has graciously offered to host a half-day technical workshop on March 9th. And the goal of that workshop is to educate Southern California program managers and their engineers on how we estimate water loss and why we're confident our techniques are accurate and verifiable. And then how do we monitor when a project is done? And so the best way, as engineers, we think about the way to do that is walk them through some specific projects and say, here's how we started it, here's how we estimated the water loss, here's what we did, here's how we verified it was over, and here's what it cost and how long it took. And if we can walk them through and explain our water world to their energy world, I think what they're going to see is, oh, wow, they really do a lot of engineering and evaluation of things, and they have good methods and standard methods for doing these things, and we can rely upon them to base funding and incentive payments based on that. The goal is, and Bernard can talk more about this, is that we write this up and write these procedures up in a way that we can go together to the California Public Utility Commission and say, we're ready. We're confident we can spend the money responsibly with this type of procedures and this type of requirements. If we are able to do that, then of course California Edison will be able to offer that to its customers, you, and then you would be able to get incentive payments for projects done after that date. So we want to move quickly in order that you're eligible for incentives as quickly as possible. Now, many of you would probably like to participate. We want everyone to participate, but we don't need 30 examples. We'll have about a few hours, and so what we'd like to get maybe is 2 to 3 project examples that we can work with the volunteer to really go into some detail. But for everyone on this webinar, invite you to come to the workshop so that you can give your own perspective, you can understand the issues, and think about how your portfolio of projects can fit into this possible, this incentive. So we would really like, if you have projects that have recently completed, like in last year, if you have some examples and are willing to work with us to develop those into something we can present on March 9th, please contact me or Tim Worley as soon as possible. We'd like to have a discussion with you next week and have you gather everything, gather your available documents. And we really want to emphasize we're not asking for new information. We don't want we're not asking anyone to do a lot of any extra work or spend contractor dollars on anything. The whole point is to show with the available documents we do for our projects, we can document the energy, the water loss prevention, the volume and the savings and the cost and the duration. These things are things we do routinely, and they're available to us. So the real request we have coming out of this is to try to get those 2 examples so we can make the March 9th workshop successful, so that we can all benefit from them. The next bin I talked about was future water loss projects. We have 2 objectives for this bin. One is to help, number one is for you. It's to help you qualify for incentives. The second is for the state and national effort, is the more we can show that there's projects out there that save water, save energy, but can't be funded because of resource constraints, the more we can show there's a demand and a potential for energy savings in our sector. And this will help focus the minds of policy officials in California and the nation that our sector is a great investment and should get more incentive funding than we currently do. Fortunately, I know that many of you go through a planning process and have a pretty good idea of the projects you would like to do 2 to 3, 5 years, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, but aren't, you've prioritized what you can fund this year versus what will have to wait. So to the degree that you have these things and to the degree that they're able to be discussed publicly, it would be great. Again, we want to use what's already been developed and available, not ask for anything new. If we have those things, and if you can help us identify where you see the water savings in those projects, our goal would be then to present consolidated data on our potential as a section or as a group to the CPUC to really convince them that we need, we're a great opportunity for funding. The third bin, other near-term projects. Again, we have two objectives. One is to help you qualify for incentives. The second is, like I just mentioned, to demonstrate to policy officials that we have a lot of potential for energy savings and could do more if incentive funding was available. Now, depending on the demand or how much interest you have in this bin, I think we have some options as to next steps, and this is something that we'll follow Tim's leadership on. We can either work with you as individual utilities to facilitate discussions with the right people at Southern California Edison to see whether your ideas qualify for some of the existing incentives already offered. If there's a lot of that, or if we all gather together, say at the sectional meeting coming up, we could maybe have a room and give you a rapid assessment of your ideas and say, yeah, that's probably going to qualify, or no, that may not, to try to help you, give you guidance on some of the potential for some of your ideas to qualify. And then, as Tim said, the section is rolling out more of these webinars. If we see that there's some common themes or common types of projects that you think fit in this bin, maybe the section can offer further training or a clinic or something like that to help talk about how you can present those as energy efficiency opportunities. With that, I know after this, I'd really like to entertain your questions and specifically try to find volunteers that can help us with our immediate need of presenting some examples of the great potential we have on March 9th. Tim, with that, I'll turn it over back to you.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you very much, Jonathan. That's great information. And hopefully we have some people on the webinar that have projects to really to really get this started. We are going to hear next from Southern California Edison, and specifically from Bernard Adebayo EJ. Bernard is a project manager with Southern California Edison. He works in their local government partnerships area, where he leads a team responsible for executing energy efficiency and sustainable strategies for approximately 10 cities in the Southern California Edison territory. He recently led a team that completed the water leak detection pilot project for the cities of Westminster, El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, Lomita, and Inglewood. Bernard has a passion for water loss prevention that results in energy savings, which helps to explain his recent involvement in the water energy nexus activities. Before joining Edison, Bernard was employed at SuperValue as the Director of Facilities and Energy Management for the Albertsons division in California. There, he executed strategies for energy efficiency and facilities operations for approximately 280 supermarket stores. He also initiated a water and energy savings program for the numerous cooling towers in the stores. So I won't read everything, but previously he was also a project manager at Bristol-Myers Squibb. Bernard has received a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering with first-class honors from the University of Ilorin, Nigeria, and a master's degree in refrigeration and air conditioning from University College in London. So with that, let me turn it over to Bernard. Let me just make one last quick note before Bernard begins, which is that we have received a couple of good questions from James Hansen on the screen, the little panel on your right-hand side of your screen. that's a good way to ask a question. We will also, again, we will open the lines to questions for everyone at the end of the presentations. So with that little note, Bernard, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Tim, and thank you. I'm very excited to be here today to discuss our water loss program. And Jonathan, you really made my work easier, and I will make quick references to the two previous presenter. Quickly, this is the way my presentation will go. It's going to be, I'm going to discuss on. Good. I'm going to talk a little bit about the background, what we have done in terms of our water loss, and our current regulatory challenges on it. So just hold on for me so that I can bring my PowerPoint on. Sorry for that. We did a quick one, please, because there's a wrong PowerPoint that was on, so I need to bring the correct one. Good. Adam mentioned that there's a lot of water in electricity, and we have found that 19% of electricity in California is related to water. And out of these, 8% of it actually belong to the cold water industry, while 11% is other use. In other words, the supply and maintenance and conveyance of water represent about 8% of all our water use. Jonathan also alluded to, we are concerned with not only this type of water energy, we are also discussing where it is being used and when it's being used, means the timing that is being used. So you're going to see from the next slide the type of potential that we are looking at when it comes to the water energy nexus. In 2014, we did a pilot studies, and that Tim referenced to, and this pilot is about, we did pilot with 5 cities. We surveyed about 360 miles of water pipe. We conducted their energy potential. We evaluated the embedded energy in this in the water system, and we also compiled their water balance using the AWWA-IWA method. The cities that participated in this program, they made a commitment to repair the leaks, and this is what we found. 41 million gallons of water was saved. And the embedded energy in this water saving was about 36,500 kilowatts. So with this is a very good thing for us. We also found that we did the water energy calculator, and we found that this project was cost effective using the current our commission tool. Now let's take a look about the water potential. As I mentioned, there's a lot of energy in water. We have about 300 water territories or water agency in our territory. And in our study, all of them used about or produce about 1.2 million acre foot of water with about 800,000 gigawatt of energy. This is their use, and about 265 megawatts when it comes to the peak demand. This is a huge energy, and that's represent what we call our next energy opportunity, energy efficiency opportunity, because some of this energy is embedded when water is being carried through. Also, their reported leaks on the average, from the high to the low, is about 7.5. So with all this number, we just pick what can be our current potential, and this is what we are looking at. Going forward with the programs that I will discuss, we're trying to see if if our water agency can be able to save about 60,000 acre foot. then we will be able to harvest almost 20,000 gigawatt energy from this and about 15,000 megawatt. That's a huge amount of energy for us. So what's our proposed program? They are in 3 dimensions, and I will discuss them very briefly. We have the water leak program, water leak detection, we have pressure management, and we have AMI. On the water leak detection, it comes also in 3 buckets. Education workshops, doing the water balance for our water agency, in other words, supporting them, and the leak loss audit. We actually just just before the close of 2015, we collaborated with the California Nevada section of the AWWA, and we ran about 5 educational workshops around all our territory just to educate everyone on the potential and doing water loss program. On the water balance, just before we closed last year, California passed the SB 555 to mandate all the water agency to do water balance. Therefore, we will not be supporting that because that is already becoming regulations. And I will talk on the leak detection in my next slide. The proposed water leak detection program, our goal is to pay incentive, just like what Jonathan mentioned. What will save leaks? Either it's through the DMA, it's through the Sonic, whatever we use, we want to see how it's cost effectively done so that we can attribute some incentive dollar on the embedded energy. That's what the leak detection program is all about. We also have what we call the AMI water meter. We have found that many water agencies in our territory, they are currently using the analog meters to do their water system. Only very few have the digital meters. So we propose, and we are studying, to develop a feasibility study to assess the water energy opportunities on water AMI meters. Currently, we have 3 demonstration projects, and I will discuss on those demonstration projects in my next slides, with 3 cities. The cities with Downing, Newport Beach, and Santa Monica. We're also possibly extending this into some cities in Ventura County. One of our commissioners mentioned this. He said, we live in the field beat world. You can track every heartbeat in the step on the real time, but you can't learn about water usage. That is what the advantage that the AMI will bring forth. What is really our interest in AMI? Our interest in AMI is twofold. We want to see, number one, does AMI support water loss prevention? In other words, you can actively see your usage and you can dictate whether there is a leak and you can repair the leak. Number 2 is, does it support behavior that can make user to reduce their water use? You can see an example from the city of Newport Beach in our demonstration project that we're currently doing. They installed just 6 meters as their first one. And immediately after that installation, there was an active leak that they saw in one of the commercial meters. They sent their crew there, and immediately that leak was fixed. That leaks represent about 450 gallons per day savings. Translated in a year, it's about 166,000 gallons. We put this number in our water energy calculator. That represents about 520 kilowatt hour. This is where our interest is in the energy industry. We can put our incentive money in this, based on the cost effectiveness. This city is very excited because they mentioned we have about 28,000 meters. We don't know how many leaks that are out there. And so our support is to see how these demonstration projects we're doing that we work, and at the end of the day, we will translate the learning into developing a program that will actively support AMI installation in our territory. The third area is pressure management. That's the third measure we are proposing. This pressure management, we've noticed that most cities and water agencies all our territory pressurize their system. They actually over-pressurize their systems. And our experience have shown they want to meet fire department requirements, and they also want to meet customer satisfaction. I have actually went around and I discussed with them, is there any possibility that, pressure can be reduced? And many of them are very hesitant in reducing the pressure. And that is the current challenge. However, experts have shown that, know that with the current technology, you can actively reduce your pressure and the system can respond fast in pressure management system. So what we're going to do in solving, especially in our collaboration information forum, invite, so that at the end of our agency do and we'll be able to meet one of our agency come and do the demonstration with them current challenges. All program.
Bernard, this is Armando. We're losing some of your audio right now.
Hello?
Go ahead, Bernard. We were losing some of your audio, but go ahead.
Let me find the energy in water. And that is where in days and 9. This rigorous to be able to energy. Our really this is going on. We have 2 meetings. We have the air test, which we've been doing for and we have water efficiency is the way where we or in your water getting it. So more information
This is Tim, your moderator, and I'm very sorry about the audio problems we've had with Bernard's presentations, or his presentation. We will try and get his attention to see if his mic why his mic is cutting in and out. Anyway, I'm sorry about that, but we will try and get him back. Hi everyone, this is Tim, and I'm your moderator, of course. I'm really sorry about the audio problems we were having with Bernard's presentation. It wasn't just you, it was cutting out for all of us. Bernard, if you're hearing me now, please check your mic and or your audio connection, if you're on a mic or your phone, whichever it is, to see if we can hear you. We do have a question for you, which I'll get to in a moment. So if you can get back online with us, that would be great. It sounds like you have some exciting and very interesting things going on that our members will be very interested in taking advantage of. So we have finished our 3 presentations, and we do have a few questions that I'll get to momentarily. I want to again invite you to ask a question. We have unmuted your line, but I do have a few that have come in through the question box on your panel on your screen. So I will address those to Bernard and Jonathan first. I think these first questions are very easy to address. And Jonathan, maybe I'll start with you, and then we'll hear from Bernard. The first question, this comes from James Hansen. Do you have to be regulated by the CPUC to qualify for these kinds of incentives? And then secondly, I believe that's an easy no answer, but the second question is, what about smaller water purveyors and producers? Would they be eligible to apply for, or would their projects be considered in this kind of So if you would address those first, Jonathan, and then we'll turn to Bernard. Jonathan, are you with us, or do you have are you muted? I believe
I'm trying to unmute him. I'm muting him now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
But he's
Jonathan, can you speak to let us know if you're live?
Tim, for some reason, I'm not being able to unmute Jonathan.
Okay. Well, Bernard, are you there?
Yeah, I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So maybe you can address these the questions. One, I believe, is fairly easily addressed. A water utility does not have to be regulated by the PUC to qualify for these kinds of incentives or these kind of programs that you're proposing. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean every utility, water utility in our territory, they are qualified for the program. They don't have to be regulated. They just need to be a customer of the IOUs, for example, that is in Southern California.
Right. In fact, from what I've heard, those investor-owned water utilities that are regulated by the PUC may have less of an incentive to participate in this, but that's a whole other issue that I don't know that we need to get into here, and I couldn't really address it anyway.
Yes. What the CPUs encourage us to do is to do what is called collaboration, to work together with not only the IOUs in water, but also even with other water utilities around our territory to be able to jointly do this program together.
Great. So Bernard, just staying with you for a moment, there's no limit on the size of the water utility that would qualify to participate with you, correct? The question was, what about smaller water purveyors and producers? I think that you would say they're all equally available to participate. Is that right?
Absolutely correct. Everyone that has projects, they will present their project. Jonathan actually mentioned it very well. We have this water energy calculator to which we run the project through. As long as the project is shows some cost effectiveness, then they will participate.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. That's good to hear. Now, I had another question, and this is directed to you, Bernard. Is Southern California Edison looking at any renewable development associated with PRVs?
Definitely. I mean, this project is, my discussion today is on water. So let me take this question and I will mention it to the appropriate area when it comes to PRV so that we can get in touch with the person. My email is right there on the presentation. Please email your question to me so that the people who are the subject matter expert in PRV will be able to answer that.
Great. Okay, well, the phone lines are open. For some reason, we're having a difficult time unmuting one of our presenters, Jonathan. So we'll keep working on that so that he can address these questions as well. But for those of you in attendance, if you have a question for any of the presenters, please just speak up and we'll take those one at a time. Are there any questions out there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Please
Yes,
let us know who's speaking.
My name is Tom Arundale. I'm a consultant here on behalf of Alpine Water Users Association, which is a small utility. And I believe it was Jonathan who brushed over variable frequency drives. Is not considered as important, or what?
Jonathan, I don't know if we're able to hear you for some reason. Can you address this? Okay, we're not, for some reason, we're not getting audio for Jonathan.
Maybe Bernard can answer the question.
Yeah, I think Bernard would be good to answer that. Variable frequency drives for pumps and motors. Bernard, how does this factor into your programs?
Yeah, VFD for pumps and motors, actually, we have two types of programs. We have what we call the Direct Energy Savings Program, which is continually going on, as even different from the Embedded Energy Program, which is the Water Energy Nexus. On our website, we have, if you go to www.see.com/energy efficiency, we have a list of all the energy efficiency programs that are available, including all the pumps that we can do. For now, I can tell you VFD, depending on the pump size, from my knowledge, some of this VFD efficiency is being considered as what we call ISP, means is a standard thing by the industry. So within some time this year, it will definitely go away, but for now it's existing. But if you go to www.sce.com/energy efficiency, all the listings will be there.
Okay, can you just go over that URL one more time, Bernard, so everybody has a chance to maybe jot that down?
Okay, www.sce.com/energy efficiency. If you just search for energy efficiency measures, every year we release all the active measures that are very active in our energy efficiency, all our energy efficiency program. So it's a very small booklet. If you go through, you will see there are both AC measures, lighting measures, and there will be water measures. And you will see a list of all the water measures that is included that every water agency can participate.
Excellent. That's great. Okay, well, I have another question here, and I think this would go to you, Bernard. Can a water energy calculator be made available to utilities? Is that something that we would find on your website as well?
Actually, water energy calculator is a public document. It is found on the CPUC website, and that is the CPUC website. We can definitely provide it. It's a public. If you Google water energy calculator, you will see it is a very simple Excel document. You download the latest one from the CPUC website, the California Public Utility Commission website.
Ah, great. Okay, excellent. Let me ask if there are any additional questions. Another question about the calculator. Bernard, do you know if all of the investor-owned utilities are using the same calculator? It seems like if that's something adopted or made available by the PUC, then they would all have the same calculator to use. Is that right?
Absolutely correct. It's one calculator for everyone. The calculator is menu-driven. In other words, it gives you the opportunity to select your location. You know, where you are, you can select it, and it will be able to put in what is called your default values. And by the time you put in essentially what is your water savings and what's the cost, the incremental cost that you are using in doing this water saving, there is an output tab that shows you everything you need from it. Maybe, Tim, you might consider one of your seminars down the road if it's necessary, just for you to run a little bit on the calculator if your members wants to know more about it.
All right, thank you. That's great.
Tim, this is Jonathan. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Jonathan, you're back. Okay. That's great.
Yeah, sorry about that. And just to add on to what Bernard said, the calculator is definitely publicly available. You can get more bang for your buck as a water utility the more system-specific information you have. It's a default. It has some defaults in there, so you can always use it. But you can get more incentive and show more energy savings the more data you put into it, and that's part of the. As Bernard said, that might be a more detailed discussion, but it's definitely out there for us to use.
Jonathan, one other question that I thought it would be very good for you to address that I asked earlier. The question was about smaller water purveyors, smaller water utilities. Would you be looking for projects or ideas from a particular, only larger water utilities, or would this also be something that you'd be looking for projects or ideas that smaller purveyors might have?
Absolutely. Small, large, doesn't matter. And in some ways, smaller might be easier to explain and simpler. But no, I think the thing that can benefit us, benefit an individual water utility and the sector as a whole, is if we can put forward those projects that are routine ones, the ones we do all the time. So if you're a small system and you've got a bunch of pipe replacements that you'd like to do, bring us one so that we can use it as an example. and say this is one of many. And because probably if you're doing it, the larger systems are doing it too. More routine it is, be it small or large, is really, I think, what's going to be the biggest bang for our buck.
Good. All right. There's a question that came in about the March 9th technical workshop that was mentioned in the presentations. The question is, will there be another email blast prior to that workshop with what information the group is looking for? It might help people that were not able to attend today still participate in that. I think that the answer is yes. I'm not sure what Armando had in mind. Armando is running our technical side of the webinar, and you've heard his voice chime in once or twice. But yes, I think that makes sense. So we'll get more information out about the technical workshop to the event itself. And you know, if there are other ideas that you have of what kind of information would be helpful, just please respond to my email, which you all have in your inbox, or if you jotted down Jonathan's email address, that would be a good question for him as well, or Bernard for that matter.
As I said,
Tim?
We want to reach out to everybody, but we really are looking for some volunteers, you know, hopefully some people on this call that can quickly identify themselves or identify some projects so that we can use these 2 weeks we have beforehand to make a good presentation. So we certainly want everyone to come and spread the word to the people not on this call, but we are really looking for volunteers and volunteer projects, to use as an example.
Tim, this is Armando. One of the things that we can do is we recorded this webinar, and I can go back and do some editing on it, and then we can make it available, the link to the attendees here if you'd like to share that with someone else. But you and I can talk about that in a little bit.
Okay. One other question that I wanted to ask you, Bernard. You mentioned the AMI demonstrations that you're using or that you're involved with the 3 cities or 3 water utilities. I wondered if you would be open to any AMI projects in other regions, say an inland area or anything like that, or are you going to play these out before you decide whether or how to fund AMI projects in other areas?
Thank you, Tim, for that questions. Actually, what we're currently also doing, just like I've mentioned, we are extending this to 2 other cities in Ventura County, and just because of one of their challenges in meeting their needs. Our goal is to run this project really quick, get some results, so that we can open it up to everyone, and that would like to participate in any AMI. But if anyone has any project that they'd like to discuss, they can just email that to me, and I will take it up with our management for discussion.
Okay. Well, good. Are there any other questions out there before we end the webinar? All right. I wanted to give one last opportunity for any unanswered questions. A couple of quick announcements. Bernard mentioned water loss control, and that is something I wanted to mention, that we have approval for funding to provide technical assistance to all of the water utilities in California about water loss control, the water audit that urban water agencies are now required to submit to the Department of Water Resources. That becomes an annual requirement starting in 2017. And so we're going to provide a lot of technical assistance for everyone to know how to really conduct the water audit and then validate that water audit, validate your data as a first step. And so watch for more information about that. Right now, if you want to follow along with what's happening on that, go to our website, ca-nv-awwa.org, and on the front page you can see a water loss control collaborative tab. Click on that and sign up to be to get more information and stay in the loop on that. Also, I wanted to mention our spring conference coming up, March 21 through 24. We have a couple of people on the webinar this morning who are involved in our energy committee, but they'd love to have more people involved, I'm sure. So if you have an interest in continuing to pursue this line of energy efficiency for your utility, please attend our spring conference and join our energy committee.
It'll be in Sacramento.
Oh yes, thanks Armando. That will be in Sacramento at the convention center. I think that that concludes our webinar for this morning. I don't see any other questions, so unless someone speaks up right away, we'll end this. We've gone not quite an hour and a half, but hopefully we were able to answer all of your questions at this time, and hopefully we'll see many of you at the technical workshop on March 9th. We'll get more information out about that in the coming days and hope to see you there. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll conclude the webinar at this point.